very long time in my family, up to 120 years ago when we started pretending that we were German for the first time. It is, the chef prepares feasts and ale, but the fool shall dine on crow. Usually, we at Chapo Trap House are the ones preparing the feast and ale, but today we're eating the crow also. We repeatedly claimed that all the hullabaloo about coups was mostly spectacle, and that any serious intent to make one happen would be blunted by both any potential plotter's stupidity and the actual hands and powers' refusal to play. But yesterday, when a few hundred guys were led into the Capitol building like a bunch of stupid cows being given an enrichment exercise, ran around, and then several of them died due to cardiac arrest or molasses barrel-related injuries, we saw how real the threat was. The fact that the Pentagon completely overruled Trump when he told them not to send in the National Guard is totally immaterial. So is the fact that the meticulously planned coup d'etat only accomplished a few stolen podiums and some posts of a scary cartoon frog in Nancy Pelosi's office. We were wrong. You should be afraid of literally everyone and everything all the time except for NATO, Pfizer, and the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, who are the people who actually
while we could provide no
this
solace to our
bullshit.
listeners we misled yesterday, there's one man that could. Though we criticized him in the past, President-elect Joe Biden stood alone yesterday. He was the only person in the halls of power who had the courage to say the words, President Trunt. As part of our Crow Mill, we will be donating to the Biden transition team and performing at the inauguration. Thank you. And I just thought, we had to say that because
it's true. It's important for you to thank Felix. Thank you for starting the process of holding us accountable.
Yeah.
We need to be held accountable, honestly, for not being anxious enough.
Yeah.
And the question you have to ask yourself is, am I worried enough about things? The answer is always no. You could always be more worried. Why? What does it accomplish? I don't know, but at least it's something. Feeling bad is something.
Not being perpetually terrified is, in a way, a form of fascism. I read that in Umberto
It's
Eco.
privilege for sure.
If you think that this is terrorism, the best way to respond to terrorism is to upload videos of yourselves crying every 20 minutes. Talk about how scared you are all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mega Noob there, 31. Coming at you with some Chapo fanboy.
So joining
Just
us
checking it
now
out.
is our old friend Will Summer. And folks, where there's two Wills, there is a way. But, Will, we thought you'd be the perfect guest to have on because we haven't talked to you in a while. And the events of yesterday are certainly your beat. And I was thinking to myself, the last time I saw you, or I spoke to you, I think, was way back at CPAC 2017 at the National Harbor, Maryland, in the Gaylord Convention Center. And I was just thinking back to that experience, and I think it rhymes nicely with what happened at Congress yesterday. Or it seemed like, looking back, and it seemed to be leading to something like this, whereas 2017 was the high water mark for the people, the Trump supporters, and they were feeling their oats so good, and then yesterday was I don't know where it's leading or what, but both those events seem to rhyme, or one informs the other. I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I mean, that CPAC was kind of we did it, we took over the government. It was people like Mike Cernovich think they're going to be the new Nightline anchors, and everyone's going to take over, and then suddenly it's it's all collapsing. QAnon, it's the pedophiles cabal has taken over. We need to just rush the government.
Well, I mean, yeah, they didn't. I don't know if they took over the government, but they certainly got a nice a tour around what I'm calling now the Capitol Building Autonomous Zone, and you were out and about yesterday, and we all watched it on TV yesterday, and I'd like to get your perspective about what you saw on the ground. But my first question, and the one that's really been on my mind the most, is from the perspective of the Capitol Police or the FBI, and their own institutional prerogatives and mandate and their own reason for existing, on their own terms, leaving everything else aside. Letting an angry mob storm Congress is basically the one thing you can't let happen. So I'm wondering, how did this happen? How did they just walk into Congress?
I mean, it's really unbelievable. I mean, being in DC, you learn that basically the rudest cops are the federal cops. All they have to do is just guard buildings. And as you say, like your one job is prevent a riot. And it's like maybe once every 100 years they're asked to actually do that, and they just completely failed here.
I mean, like, this was all, like, planned and coordinated, like, online. Like, this wasn't, like, a secret thing. So, I mean, I don't really full tune on, but it's like, wow, this is a really great cinematic moment for the Democrats to look like they're under siege. Now, I will say I don't think they thought it was going to get that out of hand. But it looks really good on TV, and it made me think, okay, well, one of two things kind of has to be true. Either they never actually believed that Trump supporters were a threat or would do anything, and they were just being histrionic the whole time, or they did know that, you know, they had a lot of kind of volatile resentment and might get a little rowdy. And they let it happen anyway.
Shit up.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's a little unclear right now, but it is sort of baffling because, you know, as you said, I mean, this was being all planned really openly. I mean, you know, there are Twitter threads where people are like, I'm pretty sure these guys are going to storm the Capitol and they're going to use ropes and all this. And the idea that like random people could just go on the Donald and be like, oh, this is what they're up to, and the FBI or the Capitol Police wouldn't spend 20 minutes doing that is just crazy.
The idea that they were, I mean,
only comment.
saw
This is
videos
pretty
of them
new,
just being let in like stupid cattle.
They were going through the metal detector and
was
using
posted, like,
the
a couple
fucking
hours ago.
roped off lanes.
Right. And
Like,
like,
they were
Oh my
going
God,
into
and
the
to see them-
like they were going in
the
to look
idiots
at
moving the fucking,
Declaration of Independence
rope
at the
guards.
fucking
Oh my God.
Library of Congress.
Like the British would say, they minded the queue, and then it just got...
yeah, and
No, they
I
were
mean,
minding
like,
the queue, and then
like
just,
I
like,
know,
one-
like everyone,
one
the way that you
fucking
get a lot of
dumbass
impressions
started
on your
moving
posts,
the
you're like,
fucking
oh, what if
pylons.
it was
He looks so
Black Lives
stupid.
Matter? But you don't even have to like do counterfactuals like that. Like I mean, yeah, obviously if they're like BLM or anything, like a lot of them would have been killed. But you know, I've seen Capitol Police haul, you know, Iraq War veterans protesting the war. I've seen them haul Constitution Party people out. I've seen them fucking manhandle Cindy Sheehan. I've seen them like fuck up libertarians who go in on hearings to like yell about the gold standard. I've seen them like manhandle and like drag away large groups and large varieties and large people with very different demographic attributes.
Mhm.
I've never seen anyone just go like, yeah, come on in. And like, I mean, like, okay, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, who knows what that is? I'm not gonna be like, this is Operation Northwoods, or like,
Sure.
they let this, like, they let
I
this.
know.
The DOD called the Capitol Police and was like, let this happen,
So
so the
weird.
normal Republicans can have a
It's
clean
so
break from the
weird,
Trump
dude,
people.
is what it is.
But
yeah.
it's
just
also
like, this
like, I mean,
congealed glob
what
of
the fuck is
fucking,
that?
like
Yeah, one, what is that?
donut
And two,
cop,
just
artery
because
fat.
I suspect or, you know, open to the possibility that a certain amount of this was allowed to happen doesn't mean I don't think it got way out of hand. I mean, they executed a woman.
Yeah, they should have
right.
domed some QAnon lady, and I want to get into to her what happened with that, but we'll go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are exactly right. I mean, it's a little unclear. You know, there's kind of one viral video where it looks like they're unhooking the fence. The guy who shot it said that didn't happen. I mean, obviously there was some fighting on, you know, between some Capitol Police. But it's also, I mean, what I thought was just so bizarre was all these various law enforcement agencies said, well, you know, we got a little heat for really harassing the BLM protesters this summer. So we thought this time we'd go totally hands off. So it's like, we were
Okay, listeners, I'm not encouraging you to do this, but there has never been a better time to steal the Declaration of Independence, okay?
Yeah, get
Find
that
the treasure.
There's a gold map on the
Defund
back.
the
This is a
Constitution
message to my
cops.
friends in the LaRoche movement. Now is your time.
Get in there and put in the Vivaldi frequency.
Yes, let's save opera.
Yeah, they're specifically. I mean, it appears that this is a really interesting moment for them to take a
Did
non-punitive
that comment
approach.
just get edited
But
like right in front
like
of
I
us?
was
That's
reading this
badass,
thing,
dude.
like Representative Tom Malinowski, Democrat from New Jersey, said in an interview in Congress would need to investigate thoroughly how the nation's capital provided so vulnerable a seemingly disorganized
Really
and
weird,
lightly
that.
armed mob, especially given Trump's incitement and abundant signs that the event would be volatile if not violent. I was surprised
here
to
we
learn
go.
this morning that the National Guard was not preemptively deployed given the threats that had
No,
been made to
there's
the
like
president's
300
incitement. And I'm like,
comments,
I was surprised by that too, Malinowski.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. They all said, hey, we're going to go and rush the Capitol if they don't make Trump president, which
but did
everyone knew
they-
was not going to happen.
Yeah. Did they like not loop him on the email? Because it almost seemed like Like he missed the memo or something.
Yeah. Like for me, the reason I think that this was allowed to happen, I don't necessarily think
These
it had to have
comments
been
get
some
whinier
like,
every
explicit
episode. What is
audio
going
operation
on?
of planning it even.
Yeah,
Just so much
exactly,
as
man.
there's this pent-up frustration among the MAGA people that has been coddled by the Republican Party because it's been to their advantage up until this point. Now there's a genuine conflict between maintaining like the norms that facilitate our system and the demands of this like brainwashed mass of people who have become like emotionally connected to Donald Trump as a person. Like it is a cult around him. That's why they're out
some of
there.
those
They're out
Jews
there
are
for him,
real,
forgetting
like,
whatever like causes of economic or psychic distress they're suffering
mental-
from. The thing that they've coalesced
mental
around
illness,
is
yeah.
him.
Well,
And
so much.
they can't be assimilated. You can't soothe them with, but we had an election because they don't live in a world where that election happened the way you said it did. So they have to essentially be allowed to have a tantrum. And this, it feels like they just sort of like, all right, like run through the halls, get it out of your system, because on Inauguration Day, my prediction is there's going to be a fucking army in Washington, D.C. There's going to be more fucking troops than attendees, and there's going to be no question of any shenanigans
Man,
happening.
it
then.
made me ill
Well,
to
and they
see
no longer have
the news
their outsider position, which is the interesting
the day
thing because
after, and
in their head,
domestic
for the
terrorism
longest
just
time,
in
they
big
were
words.
the maverick,
And
like rebel
It's-
kind of
it is
outsider
a huge
thing.
bait and
This
switch,
was
dude.
like what they sort of seemed to believe with all the American flags and God, there were so many. I saw North Vietnamese flags.
That was
yeah,
me.
like-
there's a
That was
big
me.
there's a big Vietnamese contingent. Yes.
That was so weird. But like now they see themselves as a restorative project. Now they're like, no, we're protecting America. Actually, the thing that actually happened, the democratic process was that Donald Trump was elected.
Yes.
We're protecting the American norms. They're no longer rebels, they're patriots. It's like that's always like kind of a thing that they could never really reconcile in their heads, but they think they did make America great again. So now they're behind America. It's so weird.
Well, I mean, but before like the mob
confused.
stormed the Congress at the Capitol building. I mean, essentially this started out as like the Stop the Steal rally, right? And like that, that's who you're there to like attend. And I was just wondering like about how many people will attended this protest, as it started out on like Wednesday morning.
Right. It's hard to get numbers. I'd say maybe across DC at 20 to 30,000 maybe.
And it's just
McGee.
about 30,000
Oh,
people. Trump he addressed the crowd, and he reiterated his what he's been saying, basically since the election was called or election night. And this is a tough question to answer because it's a hard to like parse out like what individual people like really believe in their heart of hearts and what they're willing to tell a reporter or anyone who asks them. But what was it like? Of the people who attended there, how many of them were at the very least willing to say openly that they thought that like they were part of something that would lead to Biden being arrested and Donald Trump being inaugurated president? Like sincerely, genuinely believe that they were taking part in something that like was obvious to everyone who see that Joe Biden will not and cannot be president in the next 2 weeks.
Sure. I mean, I can tell you that I talked, if you phrase it as maybe like people who are like, either this is stopped or we're going to have a civil war right now, and I'm into that. I talked to, before this happened, maybe a dozen people before the barricades were breached. And I really felt that I was like, God, am I just like fishing for the biggest nuts? Because everyone I talked to, just like grandmas, all these people were like, yeah, if Trump doesn't get it, like there's going to be gunshots in the next 2 hours, like in a couple hours, we're going to go nuts. And I was like, this is crazy.
Whoa.
And so, it just took me forever to find someone who wasn't really down for a civil war, like in the next couple hours. And then obviously once it kicked off, I mean, everyone was really going for it.
I mean, like this has been your beat for a while now, and we've been following like sort of the QAnon phenomenon through your work and other people, and like as it gets closer to Inauguration Day, I mean, like it seems like it is finally leading to like something where there will be like a definitive result that will disprove or like show that like maybe the plan isn't working, but like that's not how these things work. They just mutate into like fit like a new reality. And I was just wondering like I saw a lot of QAnon flags and just like how much of the presence of like the belief and like commitment to protest or storm Congress, like how much of that is like a QAnon thing? Like the woman who was killed by the Capitol Police was like a full online like TrueAnon. QAnon.
Big time QAnon head.
She was implementing the Belden program.
What I mean is like how many of the people that like you talk to were like we're talking about these events or things that might or could happen like through the lens of QAnon?
I mean, just tons of them. I mean, huge amounts of people were there and were either explicitly like, I love QAnon, here's my Q shirt, or are sort of talking in like cloaked QAnon where they're saying, I think there's this like evil, this satanic deep state cabal that's out to get Trump, and maybe they won't explicitly say it's QAnon, but that's what they mean. It was just a really bizarre scene. I mean, as you mentioned, the woman who was shot, she appears to have been convinced yesterday would mark the storm, which is the big QAnon moment where Donald Trump is supposed to execute all his enemies and just have a kind of massive purge. Right, so she tweeted like, "Tomorrow's the storm. I can't wait to be there at the storm." And obviously, it didn't work out great.
Dude, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, "This is
pretty
the
grim."
storm.
I mean, if
the Capitol storm,
unarmed woman gets killed by the fucking Capitol Police, like that's not great. And also, like you can't also say that
the
like
coverage too. Sorry, when that
they would
happened,
be
were
convinced
people in
that
the crowd
was
aware of
the
it? Because
storm.
I couldn't. I mean, I was flipping around between different cable news channels. And they're like, by the way, a woman was shot. And then they're like, look at these deplorables. And it's like, I'm sorry, someone was shot?
Yeah.
And then they're like, the woman has died. By the way, these anarchists are like Anderson Cooper calling them seditionists. And it's like, there was someone who was shot. Like, holy shit. Were they aware that had happened to her? Like, or was it the sort of thing that, because, in a big crowd, you don't always see, like, the thing that happens in the middle?
Yeah, it was kind of a fog of war situation, I think. I mean, I think there were maybe people inside Congress knew about it, but certainly on the outside, I saw her getting wheeled away in the ambulance, and there was kind of a scrum around her. But, I mean, honestly, it was unclear to me whether it was, a congressional aide or a lawmaker who had been shot or a protester.
And, I mean, we know the woman, who her name is and sort of, why she was there, but, like, do we know anything about the circumstances that led to her being shot by the Capitol Police?
Well, there's video of it, right? So there's basically, it's a very weird situation because they're defending one of the chambers of Congress, and so it's kind of like literally at the last line. There's like a door, and presumably it's the one where the Q shaman didn't lounge around because obviously people got in there. And so they keep saying get back, and she's kind of like right next to the door, and then somehow like someone shoots her. I mean, obviously one of the Capitol Police shoots her. But it's a weird thing because there were also Capitol Police like in the hall with her. So it's kind of like it doesn't seem like it was that rowdy if there were other cops that, I mean, even could have been shot themselves by the Capitol Police. So it's a very strange situation.
Doesn't seem like it was
she
that
just
rowdy.
walked into that point.
See,
So
these are
like
some of the
they were just sort of walking in. It's
the
like
footage
they're walking in
on Hassan
like
Abi's channel
relatively
that he's
unmolested,
running,
and
and
then
for
all of
the
a sudden,
BBC,
no, don't go to that one. Bang.
some parts of it are utter
I mean, like
chaos. The cops
like
are like
mainstream,
zip tying
liberal
like 10 people at a
left
time,
position
and
seems
then
to be like,
everybody else is just
it's okay
running
for the
by.
cops to just execute you if you're
They're doing
mentally
that,
ill and
and, like-
annoying. Which, to be fair, I've been saying for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy situation because, I mean, this guy who was with her was like, yeah, we were just like running through the Capitol causing trouble, just like doing whatever we wanted. And they said, get back, get back.
Misbehaving.
Right.
Exactly. He had a pickle in his mouth.
Oh, we're just a rowdy white mob terrorizing a bunch of
And so
black
they're-
civil
the
servants.
cops
No
saying,
big
get back,
deal.
get back. I mean, and then this is according to a guy who's sympathetic to the woman who was shot. And
like a
then
Faulkner
apparently, I guess
story.
she refused, and they shot her. Obviously, there's more to come out, but it is. But then he was like, "Isn't it unfair that we aren't allowed to just like run amok all the time?" And it's like, I don't know.
Doing bad things is fun. Sorry, Matt. I just kick it out of my head now. Running through the House of Representatives with a pickle in my mouth. I mean, Will, you bring up the QAnon shaman, and I don't know if people are familiar with this guy. If you may have seen the pictures of him, he's this sort of like sort of like a Gaston-like figure. He's sort of like a Disney like hunk, but he wears like a sort of
He looks kind of like
horns.
Jason Momoa.
Actually, he looks kind of like Matt Karp.
Oh, yeah.
We were passing it around. Like, damn, he was not kidding about burning your bus.
Like he's sort of like he's shirtless. He's got sort of tribal tats and wears like a big sort of like horned fur hat.
bust.
What's
He's
that?
a burner.
What's that guy's deal? And also like you've been covering this scene for a while. Like, who are some of like your favorites, or like our old friends and characters who showed up either to storm the Congress or speak or address the crowd at the Stop the Steal rally?
Sure. So as you mentioned, the Q shaman. He's he's a pretty fit guy, which you better be if you're dressing like a World of Warcraft character. And he's kind of a notorious character in Arizona QAnon, which is a very like fertile field of QAnon.
Oh, I would imagine.
And he he pretty much does what you would think. I mean, he carries around a spear and he goes like rah, and like this QAnon.
That thing you do.
He's a mascot.
Classic move.
Yeah, that is the thing the Vikings would say.
He's their gritty.
That dude with the hat.
I would say he's the naked cowboy, but the naked cowboy is
He's
also
the
a
fast
QAnon
runner.
guy, I think.
Yeah, the naked cowboy being a QAnon guy is like maybe the least annoying aspect of his personality.
I mean, like QAnon people would get released from jail in Arizona, and he would be waiting for them and just like just bellowing with his spear outside the courthouse. But yeah, so he's kind of become a national QAnon figure now, and there were plenty of just other really odd characters milling around.
But then, obviously, kind of like before the barricades were stormed, before obviously Trump, addressing the crowd was kind of like that was the marquee event. And he gets out there and does his shtick. Did you see him talk?
No, I did not. I was already at the Capitol because getting ready for things to pop off.
But like the funny thing though is that like after he spoke, and he hyped up the crowd, and then they took it upon themselves because as he was speaking, news came across the wire that Mike Pence's office issued a statement where he's like, I've been hitting the books all night, and honestly, like there really is no constitutional or legal authority for me to like cancel state electors as vice president. So he was like, the last thing, because like that was all the lawsuits went nowhere. Everything they've been trying to do with this bullshit is just like went nowhere. Blocked at every turn, and like the last thing they were holding on to of like checkmate, get your popcorn ready, was this idea that like Pence, like in the Senate could like invoke some authority, and then Trump was, of course, pressuring him all week long, and then it's funny. Pence's people said, like, he's studying the issue very carefully, and will decide by tomorrow. But he announced, like, through his own office that like he was not going to stop the steal, like as Trump was talking, and then of course the people, the angry mob went to Congress to like and they literally did succeed in like stopping the certification of the election from going forward. So. I mean, they've delayed it. I mean, it's inevitable, but they did basically stop like the business of government from being conducted by storming the seat of federal power. But then Biden issued a video where he was like, what do you call him, President Turnt or whatever?
No, Biden had
President
the courage
Turnt.
to say what no one else would say, which is President Trunt.
So he does a video where he like quotes Abraham Lincoln and is like, and then directly calls out Trump that like you need to like go back out there and address your supporters and tell them that this is not okay. And then Trump cuts another video that he put on Twitter where he basically just reiterates and like doubles down on everything these people like believed as they were storming Congress.
It got stolen. It was a landslide, and they stole it. They stole it from us, and it was a stolen election. But you got to stop.
It was amazing too because I think he did want them to stop.
Oh yeah, no,
but he also wanted them to. Like
But
he's
he
so
can't give it
horrified.
up.
Yeah, the one thing that he and Anderson Cooper agree on is that his followers are like hogs.
Yeah, that entire thing, that like him having to do multiple takes on that, and like just all of them being like that was so funny.
That was the
entire
best take they got.
The entire Trump saga was funny. Like, I think it's funnier to be suspended for 12 hours as the president than to be
Oh God,
banned.
that's so good. They fucking suspended his account, and on
Yeah.
Facebook too. The mods have come down on him. Permabanned President Trump stopping 55.
Hey guys. This is just a warning about prodromal schizophrenia and posting about Graydon Carter. I've been doing it for very many years. I'm formerly permabanned poster Vanity Fair Stomper 88.
Permaban.
No, but my favorite clip at the end where he goes, "You're
He's
very
done.
special people. I love
You're
you."
very special. I love you.
Oh my God.
I love you.
You're
And that's
very
it. That's why they're
special,
doing
and I
this.
love you.
Because they
Yeah.
love him.
We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special.
Yes.
Yeah.
They love him. It's beyond politics. That's the only
that-
reason. Americans don't ever do anything about
Weird.
actual politics. We save this shit for
Weird.
sports, which is what we turned politics into, and we're treating it that way.
And this was a soccer riot.
Yeah.
Catherine and I were watching this on CNN because, like, it's one of the few times I actually did turn on cable news because, this is an event made for fucking cable news. And I was watching CNN.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Anderson Cooper was talking to a lady, and they were all like, "This is the most shocking and disgusting thing I think I've ever seen." What's your name? Dana Bash said it reminded her of what like being in the Capitol building on 9/11 felt like. But this other lady said,
Shut the fuck up.
and then this other lady said, "I think it's time that we ask ourselves the question: Is Donald Trump capable of leading us as a country?" And I was like, "Give him another 2 weeks. Let's see what happens."
Is it
Surprise
time
you.
to ask that question? Is
Like
it
we
really time to
literally
ask
just
that
had an
question?
election about that, and like a slightly larger group of people were like, "Yeah, no, I guess not." And then they elected another guy who's not really capable of doing it.
Yeah. How reassured were you by him coming out and going, Donald Florp?
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
I wrote
Just saying,
down
it's America. Come on, man. It's America. Do American stuff. Stop doing stuff that's not American.
I wrote down something Joe Biden said because it was so inspiring. It was, "There's nothing ever that we ever try to do that we couldn't do together with us." It was deeply inspiring.
Who's not going to hit the trenches for this man? Who's not going to join the shabiha of this man?
Yeah,
Matt, what you said about how like this is about personal love for Donald Trump and the love they have for him. Like, well, this is where I want to go because like the QAnon, the MAGA phenomenon, that like 30 about like I don't know, maybe 25-30% of this country will, whether they believe it in their heart of hearts or not, is willing to act like and state publicly that like they simply do not believe. They believe that Trump won in a landslide election and it was like obvious to everyone this election was stolen, and they will never be shaken from that belief. Like a good chunk of the country.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like where's it going? The QAnon thing, like if like a sort of a Millerite phenomenon of like, well, when the end of the world doesn't happen, then they're just like, oh, we got to carry the one. It's actually next year. And
like
what
the
happens
next
with
8
these
years
groups like that is that they
of
actually
being
like
a
grow
Democrat
in size
in
as
the
the
year
more
2000.
prophecy fails. So my question is like, Catherine and I were watching CNN, and we saw Rick Santorum on CNN as like a paid CNN contributor. And I just remember thinking back to when he was like in office, thinking to myself like, it can't get any worse than this. Like, like this guy is so fucking grotesque. Like we get any lower like as a nation in our politics? And the answer is yes, we can. But Rick Santorum, as bad as he was,
Louis Gohmert
represented a like political vision that could be enacted through like a democratic process. Whereas QAnon, what do they want? Like what what are they against? And the answer is I don't know, demons, numerology.
What do you got?
No,
like
they need to get rid of democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
because they imagine that the only reason we don't have good things in this country because it's a good country is that bad people are in charge. And the system that allows them to be in charge has to be swept away. It has to be swept away.
And this is what I mean is like it's sort of post-political because for the QAnon MAGA people, like for them to get what they want actually would necessarily entail like the complete destruction of like the very basic like foundations of like our democratic process and government.
Okay, well, like that sounds pretty much exactly like their historical precedent, the Birchers.
Yes.
And it's like the Birchers, also like everything the Birchers, like nothing they said was true because like they thought like the Dulles brothers were communist agents. Like it was the same idea.
Idiosyncratic, like shit thrown together, not even a coherent, like say what you will about the Nazis. They at least had a whole comprehensive worldview.
Right.
You know, there weren't any plot holes in their ideas.
And and like what happened to the Birchers? Well, it's like now we have this. And it will just we'll just keep getting probably dumber and dumber shit as we like the Imperial Project continues to fall apart. And
these people,
these
people are the lint traps of reactionary thought.
Yeah, exactly.
The question I have though is how does the Republican Party deal with this? Because it looks like the higher levels are doing what you'd imagine them to do, which is stick to the institutions, dance with the one that brung you, and finally draw a line that they haven't done until now because they haven't had to, and now they're doing it. And the question is, how does the base, which even if they're not all out there charging the fucking Capitol, a lot of them sympathize with the idea and with the fundamental notion that they did not lose the election, and that capitulating on that point is essentially surrender to the enemy of America. How is the Republican Party, which does have interests that transcend just the personality cult of Donald Trump, how the hell are they going to manage the feelings of these fucking voters who are much more able to discipline them through things like primaries than the left could ever hope to do with the Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, we're potentially seeing a big crux moment for the GOP.
Are they, though?
Because, basically everyone is going to have to buy into this idea if you want to stay in good standing with the base that the election was stolen. And that then maybe every other election Republicans ever lose going forward is stolen. And then you're kind of edging into QAnon non-reality. And then as long as you're there, why don't you just buy into Pizzagate and everything and Seth Rich? And so, I mean, in terms of what these QAnon people want, I mean, it's such a wide array, and there's religious goals and kind of a cleansing fire. And obviously murdering all the Democratic pedophiles. But what I think is interesting too is it's a lot of personal things. They believe a secret bill was passed called Nasara ahead of 9/11, and that it would absolve everyone's medical debt and all of our debts, and it would be kind of this jubilee year.
Sick.
And so
God, that's so frustrating because that's the goddamn.
I know.
That's the alienation that's supposed to theoretically fuel a working class movement, but because we live in the fucking fantasy realm where we are all in cloud cuckoo land, it turns into this gibberish, this narrative idiocy.
Yeah, well, and the Democrats don't help because
their job is to make sure it does that too.
From being oppositional.
Pushing it in the same direction. When those
Matt,
guys
shut
attacked
up
the
and let
Capitol,
Amber talk.
one of the big
Fuck.
reasons beyond anything that they
Male
fell
dick
back is
fuckface.
that it's to everyone's benefit for them to ransack the Capitol. It helps the Democrats because they get to point to these guys as this terrible thing to scare all those suburban white people who do not like this stuff into further allegiance with the Democrats. Also discipline the left because if we show any break in our united front, these people will just seize power. And then the Republicans, hell yeah, these people, as long as we can ride the tiger, they're going to allow us to clamp down on, as basically the deal that they're looking to strike, the Republican Party, is in exchange for us figuring out a way to talk down our psycho base, we're going to basically ban all voting outside of on the day with an ID. And that will be.
We have to protect you from the terrorists.
Exactly.
They call them terrorists.
Yep.
They call them anarchists. They call them seditious.
Any amount.
It's
amount,
oh, great.
All of the inevitable panopticon surveillance increase that's going to happen as we continue to deal with the crisis we're in.
This is really our clownish
as evisceration continues, evictions and stuff. Fucking medical debt, the coronavirus
is kind of
is going to require a lot more state intervention, a lot of heavy hands. And if this is the danger that is just outside the door, any indulgence, any violent overreach by the state in the hands of the Democrats will be considered progressive because it's protecting us from the ravaging monsters outside our door. So the interests of both parties are to let this thing go as far as it can, as long as they keep firm an understanding of where the real hand of power is held. And that's why the only prediction I'm going to make about any of this is that Inauguration Day is a fucking lockdown like a motherfucker. That's all I'm saying.
Well, but I had a question for Will, though, because I was just on another fucking podcast where I had to be like, they're like, oh, is there going to be a split in the Republican Party? And I was like, we don't really do splits. We do ginger groups, like the Tea Party. But, that's a group within a group that pushes the larger thing because we don't really have party splits. But I'm very skeptical of that being plausible with the QAnon people. Both because they are so politically idiosyncratic. They're not like the petite bourgeoisie that made up the Tea Party base.
They're more diverse than that,
and rational churches. And they've got all kinds. They're like Birchers. They got all kinds of weird ideas. But also because of what Matt was saying, I think they're actually more beneficial even to the Republican Party as a weird kind of outsider boogeyman populist mob.
As long as the party itself is able to negotiate the bringing into power of the Q people, what this could end up being is just an intensification of that Tea Party pressure movement of primarying rhinos. And the rhino will be anybody who didn't stand up for the coup. And, the quote-unquote coup. And that might very well see the Q people take power in the Republican Party. But the very process of being elected to office and then getting enmeshed into the Republican Party and getting essentially bought off is going to, in the minds of the Republican elite, allow them to metabolize the QAnon phenomenon. It will push the Republican Party farther to the right. It will make every election contested, guaranteed, but the capital, will still be able to manage the transition. And I think that's the hope, and I think that's the assumption, because this is going to be a bipartisan symphony on how they deal with this, because both parties have the same interests at heart, which is string this thing along, but just don't let it overthrow the dikes, which they can do because none of these idiots have any idea what the fuck they're doing. They can't coup shit. They don't have plans. They are people who are all Instagram fucking influencers selling each other Tupperware containers and fucking vape cartridges outside of the Capitol and then doing fucking selfies next to the toilet. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're just having fun because they don't know what to do with it. So that means they could be manipulated by everybody in power for their ends.
Their protests behave much the way liberal or left protests do. They're very just like libidinal and
well, I gotta say, I see a similarity, honestly, between this Capitol, as Will said jokingly, and the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle. In both cases, you had a situation where the ostensible political base of the leadership, in the case of Seattle, the Democratic Party that is hegemonically in control there, has this overwhelming popular anger that cannot be assuaged through normal channels, but they fear what happens if they apply too much violence to it and what that could set off. So they essentially say, well, let's let them tucker themselves out. Yeah. And so they withdrew from the middle of town and they let the people set up until they basically
until a couple people or until a couple people get shot and killed.
Well, that helps too, and then they of course probably had a lot to do with that, honestly. And in a similar way, here is this overflow of emotions for various reasons. It's not really feasible to bring out the iron glove. But let them tucker themselves out.
Well, Matt, it's funny you make that comparison because the people on the Donald who planned this were explicitly modeling this after the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
I didn't know that.
And we're saying we're going to do it because that whole issue looms very large in their minds, even from the summer. And so, I mean, they really wanted to make it like that.
It's Gulch.
Well, yeah, no. Will, though, I mean, to follow up on that, though, I was going to ask you,
Gulch.
Today and last night,
oh my God.
On
the
Donald,
so a bunch
on
of 19-year-olds
on the forums where these things kind of percolate. I mean, how are they dealing with the fallout from this? Because I think what I've seen is half of the people are super proud that hell yeah, I was in Nancy Pelosi's office. We're fucking we're wilding out. This is great. We stormed the Congress. We got them shaking in their boots. And then another half of people who are already saying that all that shit you saw in the news of people storming the Congress, that was Antifa pretending to be us. So there's between whether they can claim credit for this or whether they should create another ridiculous lie to cover their ass because they might look bad.
Once again, the battle with the optics cucks continues.
Do you think how the Chaz, they ended up just doing the opposite of what they said they were the reason the Chaz existed, they ended up doing, they just ended up doming unarmed black teens. The conservative Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, they're going to accidentally establish a Soviet.
That's a great point.
It's
they accidentally do universal healthcare.
We're going to socialize the means of production within the area and create autarky. Wait a minute. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I know. It'll be something like, all right, every patriot should own their own business, even if they work for someone else.
Selling coffee.
But how are they responding? I mean, one of the people got shot.
Yeah, well, she's a martyr now. I mean, they've really really gotten into her and saying how could this happen. But in terms of how they're responding, I mean, Matt's exactly right. I mean, there's a division here between the optics cucks, as it would be, and kind of the hardcore proto-fascists on the Donald or the Proud Boys or 4chan. I mean, the folks who actually did it for the most part are like, hell yeah, we did it. And then this whole Antifa thing, which was based on it was someone who had a tattoo from the game Dishonored. And they said that's a Stalin tattoo. And then there's this facial recognition company all these blogs use. That's just like total nonsense. And what they do is they take like just a green overlay on someone's face, like it's like hackers, like movie hackers, and they're just like, this is like high tech. This guy's Antifa, and it's like you just Photoshop that guy's face.
What?
Oh, dude.
Hack the planet. You the planet.
But I mean, how internalizable are they? It's only going to be the optics cucks that they can sort of internalize into the Republican Party, right?
Right.
Because
yeah. Exactly. Those are the ones who are looking to actually get an inside, like they're running an inside game versus the ones running an outside game, like the social media people who they don't care if this is successful politically. They just need to get more attention so that they can sell more powders and nostrums.
Right, and there was that one Q woman that got elected to, I forget what, I don't know, like dog catcher of Arizona or something, and she had cranked up during the campaign her crazy, and they reeled her in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like for example, like Lauren Boebert in Colorado,
Boebert,
who's going to wear the Glock and all this.
That is like. They made a guy who's never left Japan come up with the name for an American.
Yes,
Lauren Boebert, I guess.
Yeah, that's some Sleeve McDyke level shit right there.
Yeah. So, because she had basically during the campaign, she her claim to fame is all the waitresses at her restaurant carried guns. And also, like, I mean, there was a huge diarrhea outbreak at a restaurant. I mean, she doesn't talk about that.
Wait, Will. What's the restaurant called? Shooters?
Shooters. Yes, exactly.
Actually, that literally is Felix's kind of girl. So there's like a lot of bathroom access and guns.
Yeah. No, I would love to eat at active shooters.
She went on a QAnon podcast, and they were like, she doesn't even necessarily seem to be that into QAnon, but they were like, so you think QAnon's cool, right? And she's like, yeah, it's really cool, And then she wins, and then the NRCC clearly sends someone out, and then she's just like, no, QAnon, that's not for me.
Right. So they're disciplining.
So, Will, one of the things I think is really interesting about QAnon is that, I mean, we joked about it, but it's kind of true. Do you remember during the voter fraud hearings when that like clearly drunk woman was like,
"Oh hell yeah,
let me tell you what I saw, you fucking cocksucker."
Yeah, you're attended.
Were you there?
Yeah. Okay.
Were you there?
And it's like,
how about you?
They're like, that's
what have you ever
why
done?
Q has a future is because like those people are usually apolitical. Like Q activates a lot of people who like. Yes, so
they are what very few people are in this country anymore. They are self-starters. They are motivated to do stuff.
Right. So
which is why you're so jealous of them actually storming the Capitol.
Honestly, yes,
we wish we could
because
be
they are motivated. It might be because they're unbalanced, but at least it generates some fucking energy. They don't just like turn themselves into paralyzed wrecks by worrying about if they're worrying enough about things and if they're defining things the right way.
Right. So Q is like, it obviously activates like different types of people. And it activates people into some type of political arena. It's obviously like not doing politics in the strict sense, but it is being politically involved. People who would otherwise be like arguing about, their business of selling jewelry on Facebook or whatever. It gets them into politics. And something I thought was interesting about Q and this protest is like you had a variety of people who were at varying levels. Like, like you had like some Nazi regalia. There was like a Celtic cross, like Aryan Brotherhood uses. But there were also people like waving an Israeli flag around.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was so interesting about this was that not that this was like Nazis storming the Capitol per se, but that this was like a cross section of fucked up ass stupid Americans.
Yeah.
It was a trade show for American dysfunction.
Yeah.
Yes,
it was like a con. I was thinking that it was essentially like a Comic Con that got really out of hand. Like Will Wheaton gave like too wild a keynote and everyone went buck.
And that's like why Q is kind of successful is because it's like, yeah, you can have a guy in there who's like, his thing is like, yeah, I'm a black guy against affirmative action. Or you can have a guy in there who's like, fully like anti-Semitic. Or you could just have like some drunk woman in there. And it can all fit what they want.
You know what?
It provides a sense of community, but the other thing that it appears to, unlike the conservatives, remember that old gem? It appears to be fixated on, what leftists are focused on,
Kanye
structures,
in the Oval Office,
visible and invisible that are
Daniel
manipulating us and
den.
controlling our life or whatever. And a lot of conspiracy theory is misplaced suspicion, but I think the same way like Marxism and materialism is very like liberating for people, like when you're like, oh, money controls everything, it does seem like the only consistent thrust throughout the Q people is the understanding that they're unaccountable elites.
Yes.
They just
Right.
that's the only link that I can find.
But the thing that makes Q so American is like, yeah, it correctly identifies they're like unaccountable, completely immoral, like actually demonic elites. But the thing that makes it American is like, no, we need the good elites to fight.
Yeah, we need the golden. We need the glorious wealth orange to lead us.
Oh my
to
God,
redemption.
they're like libs. They're like libs.
Well, that's
in that
because
way.
they're captured by the spectacle of politics. Like this whole thing, it's generated by real alienation that is actually connected to a broader sense that, oh, this isn't just random happenstance or my bad luck or my bad like morals. This is a structure. Someone is doing this to me. They got that. And they have it charged with like a religious faith that we're all very envious of. But then the actual rest of it is filled in with the dog shit that they fucking get on the internet and on television, because that's all we use to acculturate ourselves now. There's no social matrix to create social like consensus reality. We build it as we encounter things online. And what we encounter online is basically determined by our demographic, not by our choices.
Matt.
Right. It's oral history like cobbled together by
it's canticle for Leibowitz shit.
Right, women who have been kicked out of 30 bars in the tri-state area.
You know, I think you guys are making a lot of good points about QAnon. I mean, something that strikes me about it is, you know, when you talk to people on an individual level about it, I mean, they really do, as Amber said, take it as kind of a worldview to explain what's going on with their own lives. And so, like, I talked to a guy who was like, yeah, I'm dying of cancer and I can't get treatment. And rather than be like, that's because like the U.S. healthcare system is a disaster, he's like, but fortunately, the cabal has hidden the cure for cancer, and Donald Trump will soon be beating the cabal and getting cancer. Or there was a woman who said, you know, my son has Down syndrome, and he's getting just like really mistreated in school, and his school doesn't have money for a special ed program. And rather than say, like, God, why do we have this austerity state that doesn't provide this in the schools, she says, but, you know, Trump, the cabal has hidden the cure for Down syndrome, essentially.
Oh, my God.
That's so sad. Okay, but I want to.
Better call the
First of
Long
all,
Island
I
medium.
spent most of these. You know, you start out being like, oof, this isn't good. These are a lot of resentful people with reactionary, you know. But then after watching CNN for a while, I'm like, actually, I've decided Anderson Cooper is the person I hate most in this entire ordeal.
Yeah.
So in addition to kind of sort of trying to privilege shame these crazy people, like where he's like, you know, there are people in this country who actually had reason to complain. And it's like, first of all, you don't know who these people are because no one in cable news was trying to talk to them. Like there was no one talking to anyone. And second of all, you're clearly not interested in de-escalating the crazy people. You're clearly interested in antagonizing them for good TV because you're not on the ground. And I put a link in the chat that if
That
Chris
was
could
the
play
theme
it,
of
that
the
there was
whole
just this
fucking
moment that I was
day
just
is that
like,
they're
oh
burning
my
all the
God,
fucking
you're
news
a
equipment. Do you
piece of
think
shit.
they really want to talk to them?
Completely unpatriotic, completely against law and order, completely unconstitutional.
Say what you want
behavior.
about this fucking treacly shit that they all did and all their bullshit headlines about, you know.
The Holiday Inn that they're staying at in the Garden Marriott, and they're going to have some drink.
Wait. Did Anderson Cooper just dox the protesters by telling everyone where they're staying, what hotel room they're in?
Well, I like that he used kind of the off-brand Marriott. He's like, they're going to go back to the corporate stay Marriott.
Yeah, and it's like, are you being a hotel snob right now? Like, this is what liberals did during the Bush years, is that they sort of like, the problem with Bush wasn't that he had horrible, inhumane policies and that he was an imperialist, austerity capital, you know, whatever. It was that he was like a dumb rude. Which what he wasn't. He's literally a fucking like blue blood.
Deep state royalty.
Yeah. Like he's literally just using snobby fucking wasp shit. Like, fuck you, Vanderbilt. It made me want to get Olive Garden. Like,
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know what though? I mean, speaking of those guys staying in hotels, so there's a curfew right now in D.C. and they kept breaking the curfew at the Marriott, and so the cops encircled the Marriott and wouldn't let them out. And so there's all these videos of just like furious Trump supporters being like, "Why can't I order DoorDash?" And just like, and it's like, well, you tried to do a coup. I
sympathize with that, honestly. I know I should have, but
yeah. No, I mean, they were also talking about, like, you know, the flight attendants, was saying, like, don't let them fly. And I'm like, yeah, what could go wrong? Like they were trying to like ban them from flights, and it's like, well, either that means you have to start interrogating people about their political activity before they get on an airplane, which I'm not cool with that kind of precedent. Or like you're talking about expanding surveillance. Either way, like also like you're just gonna keep them there? Like that's not good either. Like you can't strand these people.
All right, well, we should let you go now. We went over. But
Sorry about that.
I just want to say thanks for coming on again, and we'll be
the
following your
Chads,
work
Amber.
in
That's great.
2021 as things continue to get weird in America, and I don't see any sign that is going to slow down or like de-accelerate in the new year, even with Biden as president. So once again,
Thanks
Will,
for having me, guys.
always enjoy to talk to you.
SRFMF Radio presenting Chapo Fanboy doing a reaction stream to Chapo Trap House episode number 487. Capitol Building, Autonomous Zone.
Once again, thank you to Will Summer. But to believe it or not, there's other important things happening in the country right now. Other things that warrant discussion, and to harken back to the opening of the show, it's time for me to eat a little crow. It's time for Chapo accountability being enforced by myself on me, vis-a-vis regarding the Georgia runoff elections. You may remember a couple weeks ago I said on the show I fully expected both Ossoff and Warnock to lose.
We need you
and I said
to help us
don't believe
flip
any
the
of the,
Senate.
I didn't believe that Trump voters would just like in any significant way stay home because they didn't believe. Like I thought I expected them to come out and vote for the Republicans. Guess what? I was wrong.
They don't care about Republicans. They care about Trump.
And here we see why the Republicans are afraid of their base. Because if they literally, there's enough of them who think enough alike that they can withhold a significant amount of votes and cost someone election, which the left cannot do.
And that's the thing, though. Like maybe it's because I'm just so conditioned by sort of liberal democratic a brain, or like how I interpret like how their voters act. Is that like I gotta say honestly, to their credit, they are willing to not just like not vote in an election, but like actively tank 2 Senate races because they by their own sort of frame of reference, or like if you believe the things they do, like they correctly understand that like the Republican Party is not their friend. And that, like they don't owe them anything, and that like they're willing to lose 2 important Senate races, like actively tank them to punish the Republican Party.
That the real enemy is both parties, and that means that you cannot basically help one of them because they will take it for granted and dominate you. You have to have a willingness to destroy rather than accommodate. If they know that you can only accommodate, you have no actual leverage.
I'm surprised. One of the best candidates I've ever seen run for anything.
Yes.
Kelly Loeffler.
John
Kelly.
Oak. Oh, okay.
Kelly.
The queen.
The woman that everyone liked.
Everyone's favorite person.
There has to have been, like, I'm not, like, I didn't believe in the voter fraud stuff, but it's like, you're telling me at least 90% of people didn't vote for her? What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's the most charismatic person I've ever seen in my life.
The lady who lives in the Cheesecake Factory, whose husband literally owns the New York Stock Exchange.
So you're telling me a bird-like woman with a lazy eye and negative charisma who's married to an unnaturally smooth man who owns the stock exchange didn't win.
And even though she campaigned in Carhartts that were so stiff you could still see the fucking coat hanger in the back.
That was great.
I loved it when she would put on like a $83 DKNY trucker hat and be like, I love hanging out in the mud. Like, very convincing, Kelly. She's from, I think I solved the mystery of her. I found out she is from Central Illinois. She's, that explains her complete off-putting unlikability.
That explains
one of us.
Illinois loves producing just genuinely repellent, unlikable people.
And we can talk about like what the implications are. That like now the Senate is we're now at 50-50 in the Senate, which will not give Kamala Harris the deciding vote. It'll give Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema the deciding vote on anything going forward.
We love to see
Which
that.
Is like, I mean, come on. Can't these two assholes be bribed in any way? I mean, you think it'd be like pretty easy.
Yes, they are being.
Yeah, but
the side with money is always going to win that that auction.
But like my point about just Kelly Loeffler, the sweet defeated angel who was probably cheated out of this election, because honestly I think she probably, as Felix said, I think she probably won every vote, but like
literally everyone.
How
could she not?
I gotta say, as sort of pessimistic as I am about the hopes of like, oh wow, the new Democrat 50-50 Senate, there is something like that is good about someone like Kelly Loeffler losing. I mean, someone who during this pandemic has like literally profited like to the tunes of like millions of dollars off like the death
like
and
a
suffering
ludicrously, obscenely awful, cartoonish villain, like Cruella de Vil level, embodying all the worst corruptions of capitalism and public service, just naked corruption. Everything that anyone has ever talked about the swamp means, they're talking about her. And then for her to just be able to put out, oh no, look, I'm wearing a trucker hat, and I'm like, I'm choking down some of this disgusting fried dough in front of you hogs.
This woman is like a profiteer.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, we found the limit of how much you can bullshit Bubba your way into into endearing yourself into like a populist base. People are like, no, that's disgusting. Even if they don't necessarily like think of it in those terms, like she just stinks too much of that kind of a person. She would have been a war profiteer.
Yeah, and the same thing for Purdue. Like Purdue didn't suck as cartoony. Like Kelly Loeffler was just like, that's just like literally just spitting in your constituents' face, giving them her. But like David Perdue is not all that much better at all. I mean,
totally exonerated, Felix. Totally exonerated.
His campaign ads where he's like, David Perdue had nothing to do with Columbine. He was not there that day. Did not approve of it. Great work, man. Another swamp creature. But sunshine on the horizon. I know you said you're pessimistic about the Senate, but I am so excited about John Ossoff.
Oh my God, I hate him. I think irrationally.
I gotta say,
actually, I couldn't figure. No. I couldn't figure out what it was, and then I realized, oh, he's like if Pete Buttigieg was gay.
Well, actually,
but he has that kind of like made in a lab thing that it just disgusts.
You bring up Pete Buttigieg, and like again, when I like weeks ago, because of my ludicrous crow accountability that I now have to face, I said like I also despise John Ossoff and want him to lose because he is like the next Pete Buttigieg. Like he just seems like another clone of like that type of person. But you know what, Felix?
Pete
like
was like the beta. This is the second generation.
But like you know what, Felix? Like you actually like changed my thinking on Ossoff because. Honestly, and I mean, I don't mean this like as a joke. I mean this like sincerely. Like the one thing
like
that
Mike
I think
Ross
like,
from
recommends
Suits,
his
but, like,
personality
with
or
black hair.
character in a way that like Pete Buttigieg you can't say about is that he literally did nothing until like I don't know a couple months ago. Like he was just doing tweets and shit. Like he was a complete like he was just bumming. I don't know. He's just like he didn't aspire to anything. He didn't really do anything. I mean, now that he's like in there, everything he believes and says is like bad. But the thing is, he doesn't really believe in anything.
He's like they picked one millennial in a lottery to get like all the things you were ever wished for. Like, hey, millennials who all go to college, you're probably not going to have anything like a dignified working life. But one of you every year will be pulled out, and one of them was John Ossoff. And he just got to be like Bat Kid for like the PMC class.
Right.
Like you get to be a U.S. senator.
Yeah, no,
He was recruited, whereas like like a Buttigieg like was the kid that asked to go to military school.
Right. Ossoff's a few years older than me, but we're both like Jewish millennial men who were given like pretty much a lifetime job that's very easy. And mine was podcaster and his was U.S. senator. I accomplished mine when I was, I started when I was 25. It took him until like 33.
Loser.
So, but like I do, like he has the swag of a man who is never, like someone, when he was growing up, someone, like he pissed someone off. They're like, John, you're never going to work in this town ever. And he was like, yes.
I just want to say one thing about Ossoff. As a semi like 2000s like music snob, adding the Pitchfork account to say you're excited for their Imagine Dragons review to drop is one of the single funniest 2000s music thing that you could do.
He's like
so
a cartoon
good.
man.
Yeah,
He's like a cartoon person.
He's not a Pete. He's a Beto.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
he's-
That's what I was gonna say. I have a
That's
little
what it
sympathy
is.
for him in the
But
weirdo
he,
beta
but he
way.
has the cult of personality of a Pete for some reason. I think he's definitely been put in that position because people aren't like, oh, look at this cool guy. They're like, look at this dreamy, amazing. Like the thirst was like.
Well, yeah, no, all those women who are posting about him, like they're like Gen X moms. They want to be 27 again. They want to be a hot 27-year-old that is dating John Ossoff and having arguments with him over using his work computer to put up their Depop store, which is like that's what John Ossoff's lifestyle is. And
I will say,
it's my lifestyle.
Yeah, we love him, don't we, folks? We love Senator Jack Ossoff. That's what I like to call him.
Ossoff.
I like to call him Jack Ossoff. It's funny to me.
Yeah, well, at least this means I'll stop getting emails that I can't unsubscribe from because I'm just sick. That are just like, please, I'm crying. I pissed myself. Like
That's the best.
We
That's the
need
best part
Joe
about Jack
to help
Ossoff's
us flip
like breakup
the Georgia
fundraising emails
Senate.
is because they probably just used actual
Give us all
breakup
your money
emails to send
now.
to us.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
Just, like do they just go into a sent folder and go was
Mitch
thinking about
McConnell
us?
is hurting my
So,
well,
here's
and
the
back to
thing, though.
QAnon's general like anti-authoritarianism. Like this is the way in which they have become sort of like more emotionally mature than liberals because they watched Reality Bites and said no, neither Ethan Hawke nor Ben Stiller.
John Ossoff. He should end up with
The
Winona
definition
Ryder.
of irony is you suck my.
No, but it's like where we're going with this is now is like okay, so like the dust is settled. The Democrats, came out and won 2 Senate races in Georgia. So now both senators from Georgia are like Democrats. The millennial Jewish kid who has not yet achieved as much as Felix has, but their moms will
And
be
a
talking
warlock.
about it.
He's
and
working on it.
and the Reverend, yeah,
Warlock.
So
Thought he was a warlock.
so the Democrats, they have 50-50, but Chuck Schumer will be Senate Majority Leader. So like now we're in a situation where a lot of people are being like, oh, all the people who said the Democrats underperformed on Election Day, I bet you feel pretty dumb now because they have technically the Senate, the Congress, House of Representatives, and the executive branch. But here's the thing, we have in very recent memory like a template for what a Democratic administration would do coming in controlling both houses of Congress. And they're going to do I just feel like Democrats and liberals are they're feeling that Obama energy again. They so want to recreate that Obama administration speed run. But the Democrats' advantage now is significantly less than Obama when he came in 2008. So how do you think that this is going to go? I saw a lot of people saying the lesson from the Georgia Senate runoff elections is that Democrats are not running like they're scared anymore. Stand up for what you believe in. Don't apologize. Don't back down. Give people money. And I'm like, other than the $2,000 check thing, did either Ossoff or fucking Warnock run like they were unafraid of or wouldn't back down? Because I seem to remember Warnock ran away pretty quickly from any of the actually morally decent and correct things he said about foreign policy. And Ossoff's single biggest media hit was him just saying no to virtually every progressive
No, thank you.
agenda.
That's going straight to my thighs.
Let me just do a speed round with you.
Okay.
If I can. Do you support the Green New Deal?
No.
Do you support Medicare for all?
No.
Do you support defunding the police?
No.
Do you support abolishing ICE?
No.
Do you support expanding the Supreme Court?
No.
Do you support ending the filibuster?
Maybe.
I don't even think it's an ideological thing. I think Felix says, he just doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do stuff.
Right.
He just doesn't want to work.
Yeah, that's it. That's his mom being like, John, I got you Rosetta Stone for Arabic, and he's like, I had PTSD from grad school.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, I'm warming up to this guy way more than I thought I would, honestly.
I can't wait for his yearly playlists.
Well,
I cannot wait to bump them on Spotify.
I think that obviously the NWO has gotten to him and is like, John, no, Medicare for all is more work for you. But I think no one in the Senate is a person like him, but I am. I think if we met each other, it would be Goku and Vegeta. We'd first have some trouble with each other because we're do the same thing. But he would eventually see that he and I are equals. We're both people who don't
and never really did have a job. And I think I could make him. We'll finally have a La Roche movement senator when I'm done.
Once you do, once you and John do the fusion dance together,
Yeah.
and become a Super Saiyan.
Yeah, John Biederman.
Fellow Ronins.
You need to do the
wandering
torture
the countryside.
Yeah, and like the NWO, unfortunately, they made John get married. We know that's not what he wants to do. Like John, he probably let's be honest. The first time he ran for that against Karen Handel,
Like another well-known
he
John.
was running for U.S. rep seat because it's like, okay, if I run for this and lose, I don't have to look for a job for 2 years. My mom won't bug me.
Yeah.
And he was probably running on legalizing open marriages, and they were like, John, that's already legal. But we can fill him up with some good beliefs.
Amber, you just said that Felix and John are Jewish Ronin, and I'm just thinking like the Jewish Ronin is a samurai who doesn't call his mother. But yeah, like I mean, like they have just the barest of the barest of a majority in Congress, and like I was saying the other thing like that because like they are really wedded now to this $2,000 check thing. Like they've all said that like, look, if we win these Georgia Senate races, $2,000 check, the survival checks, it's happening. And obviously,
Yes.
like
Right.
my initial reaction to this was like, dude, that's gonna get bargained down to like 1,000 or like they're not gonna do it. They're gonna find a way out of it. But I sort of like I think now if I had to predict something, I think they probably will do the $2,000 checks because like
I think so.
They'll do it like immediately up front, and then they'll point to it for the next 4 years.
It'll be
about,
the
like,
one
shut
thing.
up.
It'll
Yeah,
be like Obamacare. It'll be the one thing that they said that they accomplished and what you can only get with them.
Yeah, and yeah, if you want to get a viral tweet, like in 2024, you can be like, "Oh, you're saying Biden didn't do anything? Do you remember the $2,000 you got? A million." And then like follow up. Check out this video I made of all the times he said President Trump.
Okay, so my metaphor for the Democratic Party at this point is that they're essentially deadbeat dads, and they come back every once in a while to give you a little present, and you're so neglected and so desperate that you're like, holy shit, I haven't seen Dad in 6 months, but he took me to the water park. And I think Americans are so miserable that like they have that response, the response of like a neglected child, that the smallest thing, even if it's less than the thing that they were promised, is such a relief that they just like can't. Like, people don't have time to be like outraged right now. Shit is bad.
Yeah, it's like you're 16.
And you know what? Dad brought them a leather jacket.
You're 16, and then your deadbeat dad gives you the Christmas present you asked for when you were 9, and it's like, here you go.
Exactly.
Enjoy.
Exactly.
But you mentioned like just this idea of like there's such pervasive misery, and I guess like to just get back to like the Bastille Day that happened yesterday in the Capitol is like, look, we're like no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, whether you're a QAnon person or a fucking budding socialist or like a liberal or Republican, whatever, I think most people are feeling right now that like certainly after like 9 months of like indefinite pandemic quarantine and like paranoia, it's accelerating a process by which like everyone, no matter what their political point of view is, feels that like they're living in a world that is like rapidly spinning out of their control or ability to understand or affect the outcome of, and that in a political system like ours in which material politics have all but vanished entirely.
Yes.
Like, like we said about QAnon, like what are they actually are against? Like I don't know, demons and bad numbers that you can add up to give you prophecy. And like what do they want to do about it? I don't know. Execute everyone who doesn't agree with them, or like liberals. Like what do they want? They want because these culture war totems, these feelings of like being acknowledged or represented, or it's just like in the absence of like the complete abandonment of like any material politics. It just what everyone reverts to, and we've said it many times before, is this kind of like these culture war skirmishes where it's just like, as Matt, you said last episode, everything is just about like making sure the people you don't like are the ones who suffer more than you do in this like miserable as conditions worsen and get like I said, you're the feeling of like your ability to affect the future
it's
or do
nonsense,
anything, or that
dude.
your voice or vote or tax dollars that you have any control over it whatsoever.
It's ridiculous.
Because like almost people like on some level all know that like it has no effect whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's out of their hands entirely. There's no connection whatsoever. So, I mean, like I said, I expect that there not to be any definitive end to QAnon or like, oh, Biden's inaugurated. Let's find like I just think like this shit will. Things like this will continue to happen, and like how bad it gets or how far it spins out of control is anyone's guess. But like I just think we'll have this kind of roiling, like symbolic culture war battles that will lead to people actually dying.
Yes.
I have one prediction.
Go ahead.
Okay, so people are saying like, what's it going to be? The Democrats are in charge. What can we hold them accountable for? What can they be doing? I think Corona and the financial collapse and high unemployment and all of that shit means that the degree to which they are going to be, quote unquote, exercising their power is not going to be legislative and therefore not subject to any democratic thing. I think it's going to be largely discretionary and bureaucratic. And Cuomo is the perfect example of
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
That is, I think, that's the first sign that they're going to be doing things that have nothing to do with the legislature, with votes or whatever, but are nonetheless an exercise of extreme power. I also thought for a long time that Cuomo was a super dum-dum, which is, anti-Italian racism on my part. But it's like he definitely has that mob shit of being like, I got a hot ticket here. I can control this. He's smart enough to know that, and he's smart enough to, what he's doing to healthcare workers is literally torture.
Oh, monstrous.
He
killed all those old people. He fucking straight murked them at the beginning of fucking Corona.
He's a killer.
Giving people a
He's
job
killing people
that
now by fucking up the goddamn vaccine distribution on purpose.
Yes, and he's doing it on purpose.
He's
That's
getting
the thing.
his stubby sausage fingers all over the place.
Because one, it's a way for him to consolidate power and to be like, I've got this thing that everyone needs, and I'm going for some reason in charge of the program's rollout. And whoever heard of a fucking Italian hospital administrator? It makes no sense at all. And he is now in a position where he has he's given them a job that they can't possibly do. I'm not kidding when I'm saying it's literally torture. Like they would do it in like concentration camps. They would give you a job that you could almost do. That you could almost complete. Like the quota would just be a little too high. And the idea is literally just because if you're given something that you can't do and you're in a panic situation, you don't think, fuck this motherfucker. I can't do this. Fuck you. You're so focused because you're in a desperate situation. You're like, gotta peel the potatoes, gotta meet the 500 potato quota. Gotta do it. And it's incredibly disciplining because you don't have time to think, what the fuck are you doing? You don't have time to be mad at the person. So it's simultaneously disciplining. It provides like a scapegoat for him to be like, I crack down hard on public employees who weren't doing their jobs. I'm a leader keeping people safe. Meanwhile, it also prolongs the disaster and exacerbates like that just the absolute like healthcare travesty so that he appears a strong leader. Meanwhile, he is, I believe, actively not only consolidating his power, but like allowing the disaster to flourish so that he can exercise like these fucking weirdly punitive and just surreal, awful policies.
Absolutely.
What Cuomo has mastered, this is a thing that Trump intuited, but Cuomo is mastering it consciously, is that when you don't really have any power over the broad contours of American life and immiseration is like the market's doing, you can really only show authority by punishing people, by directing state violence, by fining, by arresting, by
being that manager that goes out and finds somebody to fucking turn in.
A lot of his appeal among liberals is that he punishes the right. He spanks them on their bottoms.
Boogeyman
and
bullshit,
because they blame the right for why we can't have good things, they don't realize how much fucking Cuomo's entire power structure depends on things being terrible. But they want him to take out their frustration on the right.
I mean, when he's not punishing the right, he's empowering them in the New York State legislature.
Now he has the fucking vaccine, and he gets to be Yeah, he gets to be fucking a Morton Cuomo and fucking like control the water / vaccine. He's smart enough to be like, it was literally, I'm like, oh, I bet we could find the Blagojevich fucking, I got a real hot thing right here. Like, he knows
Do
how
not
important
grow addicted to the vaccine.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's like, he is, I always got mad over the shit Blagojevich caught because I always said he does the thing they all do. And his crime was that he was arrested for being stupid enough to say it on tape. Like,
and having an amazing hairline.
yeah,
punishing
exactly. Yeah, I look forward to the Cuomo dictatorship.
Blago.
I can't wait till we're woke. There are 5 calls to prayer a day to watch Chris and Don Lemon banter. I already love watching that and shoving a Chinese-made SKS rifle up my asshole while I watch that.
Yeah, I can't wait till we have like the public execution of one nurse a day because she vaccinated someone who jumped in line, and everyone cheers wildly because he's protecting us. Meanwhile, fucking vaccines are going bad on the shelf.
You know who Cuomo? If Cuomo will become our Franco, ETA is alive in Western New York. They are the Basques.
Shit,
no one knows where they came from.
If Cuomo became like president, wouldn't like our native insurgency be QAnon? Wouldn't they be like our woke rebellion?
Yeah, the Basque.
I mean, I think it would be like the Spanish Civil War because you would have Nova separatists and they're the Catalans.
Yeah.
You'd have the ETA in Buffalo. That's what I'd be a part of. You'd have QAnon. It'd be a good time.
QAnon are kind of like the Carlists, I guess. Like the smallholding peasants of Navarre and the Basque country.
Yeah, no, they would. Yeah, because they want something.
Big floppy red berets for all of them.
They want to restore the closest thing we have to an ancient regime,
Civil
which is the Kennedys.
Yes, in the form of the Trumps.
Thanks,
Yes.
Hemingway.
Yes, the fusion of politics and business and spectacle and the real.
I look forward to us forming like partisan brigades. Only instead of like sleeping in a sympathetic woman's barn, we'll be in like a garage in Rochester, like making like a Drano bombs or something.
Well, I mean, the 8BA or whatever we're gonna call them, the Buffalo separatists will create the first upstate astronaut.
Yeah,
I want to close things out here. We've gone long this episode, but there's a lot to talk about. But like just in thinking about the last like 48 hours or so, I mean, I gotta say, like the spectacle of seeing the like an angry mob just waddle into the Capitol buildings to prevent them from like certifying the election, but like also storm the gates of federal power but stay within the velvet rope line was like very very profound. But also it's just like I gotta say I would be hard pressed to come up with a cause or movement more contemptible than these people.
Oh my God!
Save for Congress itself.
Yes.
Of course.
you know what I mean. But I gotta say, when I was watching CNN
it's a pity
the other
they
day,
can't both lose.
Yes.
If
only there was some left-wing force that could arise to challenge both of them. That'd be really helpful.
Google dual power.
But I gotta say though, watching on CNN and like seeing Anderson Cooper and gang talk about this shit, I have to admit to in a kind of a perverse pleasure in seeing these people talk about what this looks like to the rest of the world. It's just like such a blinkered, ignorant point of view. It's like this shit is like what we do. Like people in the rest of the world aren't like surprised by this because like this shit happens because we do it to their fucking countries. We just like I'm sorry, like to see like this could not have been more utterly humiliating for the United States to like have the entire world watch this shit happen. And like honestly,
it's an
like,
ode of owns.
It is. It is.
We are so fucking owned. It's amazing.
Yeah, and when we do it, the government actually goes away. We actually cause more people than just like 4 oval-shaped triple-chin German Americans die from heart attacks. What happens in Bolivia happens. What happened in Venezuela happened. The fucking pain and suffering we cause in the world, like the response to this, I think, like the performative fear and crying and panic attacks, you're going to get that. It's just like the people who did that with 9/11. There are so many people who just want to be afraid and want to be vindicated by their own fear. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have that. But I think the media reaction, Anderson Cooper and all of them, that was embarrassment because their thing is, no, this is the thing that we're supposed to do to other people.
Yes.
It's never supposed to happen to us.
Or
this
like
is the pain we're supposed to cause.
No, but and the way they talk about it, is like, how can America lead the world as the Democratic Allfather when like this stuff is happening on our TVs? And it's just like,
it's
or they're like Anderson Cooper. One of them literally said yesterday, like, how are we going to like tell other countries how to conduct their affairs of state
Dual power.
when we can't do it ourselves?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, maybe stop doing that.
Maybe that's something we don't need to do.
Did you read the
Soviets.
Venezuela statement?
That was hilarious.
Wait, what did they say?
Communism took over socialism.
This communique from the Bolivarian Republic
Nightmare
of Venezuela.
Russian communism
The government
began.
of the Bolivarian
With
Republic of Venezuela
this
expresses its
moment.
concern with the acts of violence that are taking in the city of Washington, United States. Venezuela condemns the political polarization spiral of violence that only reflects the deep crisis that the political and social systems of the United States is currently going through. With this unfortunate episode, the United States is suffering the same thing that it has generated in other countries with its policies of aggression. Venezuela hopes that soon the violence will cease and the American people can finally open a new path towards stability and justice. By the way, king shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not condemning protesters, it's just like, in other countries, Washington, United States. Venezuela, this communique from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela expresses its concern with the acts of violence that are taking in the city of Washington, United States. Venezuela condemns the political polarization spiral of violence that only reflects the deep crisis that the political and social systems of the United States is currently going through. With this unfortunate episode, the United States is suffering the same thing that it has generated in other countries with its policies of aggression. Venezuela hopes that soon the violence will cease and the American people can finally open a new path towards stability and justice. By the way, king shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not condemning protesters, it's just like, it's literally like, I noticed you're having a little trouble over there. You guys seem to be having a little trouble.
Everything's going great. I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's all going fine.
I could not take people who didn't
Venezuela,
give a shit about
trouble
what we did to Bolivia crying
on
their
oil
eyes
and
out
money.
over this. Fuck you. Fuck you. Like
the color revolution has come to America.
Yeah, no,
I just love the idea that like Angela Merkel's like, look, I can't come and sign a trade pact with you, Biden, because I'm worried that while we're sitting there in the Rose Garden, fucking Duck Dynasty guys are going to show up in a fucking Ford F-150 and run my ass over. Okay.
I mean, this is if this thing, if this is a totally organic thing, and you really, and also if you really think these are terrorists, you know what this is? This is the frontier coming home.
Mm-hmm.
This is how imperialism always ends. The war always fucking comes home because you run out of countries that you're able to do it to.
Yep.
That woman they killed, like Air Force, like something like 4 tours or something. I'm rereading shit about the bonus army.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus Christ.
She was bombing people for these people's endless fucking wars, and then they ran out of places where it would be easy. It stopped being easy. What happens? It always comes home. The frontier doesn't just go away.
Yep.
I think we should leave it there, gang.
Woo!
Savage.
Leave it there, gang.
So
Till next time to our next communique from the autonomous zone.
Reporting from the camps that we've been dragged to after the fascist coup.
Yeah, everyone say it with me. The words of resistance. President Trunt.
President Trunt? Come on, man.
Come on. This is America, man. No, I'm done, man. Come on, enough's enough, man.
All right, gang. Till next time. Cheers.
Bye.
SRFMF Radio, this is what they call the storm.
yourself get nuclear bomb.